Hot stove conversations about baseball, history, football, and current events that may leave you saying there's more to consider. Now, here's your host, Jack Moore.
Welcome to More to Consider. Today I have on my good friend Charles. We're doing a lot of shows together. Our subscriptions have gone up tremendously. I appreciate that for people who have subscribed on YouTube and in other locations. We're on X and Rumble, and we're on a few platforms, and subscriptions have gone up. So, I guess we're getting more and more exposure. So please continue to like, subscribe, and as Charles
and comment.
Make comments. Yeah, comments
on. Tell us where we screwed up.
Say it again.
Tell us where we screwed up.
Yeah, tell us. Yeah, okay, but yeah, I don't know how much of that we really want to invite right now. But anyway, I want to sort of say again in the opening, as you see all my sports memorabilia around and the kind of shows that I do, I always wanted this to be a show that was like a barbershop. If not a barbershop, a sports bar, which I think are very similar. And
yes.
I certainly know a lot is said in Black culture about barbershops. And I can tell you from growing up and my dad going into the barbershop, I think it kind of crosses racial lines. I've gotten my hair cut in Black barbershops, and it is very much like it's depicted a lot of times in movies. It's just a bunch of guys. It's guys. I mean, in a barbershop, we're not getting their nails done. It's guys. And
yeah.
In the area I grew up in, farmers are coming out of the fields and they're talking about which crops are doing best. I mean, but if there's something going on in the public, if it's something going on in pop culture, etc., I think across, like I said, a lot of different cultures and different lines, people that get together for haircuts or for nails or for whatever, have a lot of great conversations. People get together in that kind of situation. Sports bars. I don't think that we get into as much political talk in a sports bar, but certainly we have conversations about sports, and it might leak into some other subjects as well. But I do think that there's something sort of comforting about those type of discussions because, I'd argue with the wall, and I think you're my kindred there. But, there's that sign that there's sort of, I was telling you the other day, one of the biggest responses I've gotten to anything I've done was when I said the other day that I think the NFL was better in the 80s and 90s. Okay. I coached college baseball with 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. Our ongoing most fun argument is, old man, keep telling us how much better. They love it. They love it. And we argue about it all the time. And I usually snuff out any argument with, who's your Bo Jackson? So I always throw Bo into it. And I showed them some film the other day of some of the quarterbacks in the 80s. And they're like, man, coach, they're big and they're throwing the ball along with us. I'm like, yeah, so my eyes tell me. But that got some reaction the other day because I think people like to argue about stuff like that. Like,
right.
Sports better and things like that. Then there are politics, and politics have certainly changed a lot. So we're recording this on September 15th, the year of our Lord 2025. And of course, as we record this, the world has changed quite a bit, or some things have come into focus in a different way. Charles, tell me all your feelings, where you are right now. We haven't done this in a while, so tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I need to go to the whole athletes were better in the 80s.
Okay.
And it's not really athletes. Think of it this way. How do you feel about music? You would say, well, don't you think there's a little bias there for us?
No, I think it's biased. Let me just say real quick. Yeah. One of the comments I got was, you old guys, you boomers, like you all think the Beatles were better. And I said, well, first of all, I'm not a Beatles fan. I never was.
Yeah, me either.
You don't have anything for Prince.
Right.
You don't have anything for Prince. I'm sorry, you don't. Now,
right.
What did Prince pass in 2017-ish, something like that?
Something like that.
Right. So I first became aware of Prince in the late 70s or early 80s. And he was different. It's a great talk right there. But, I've heard stories that he played like 30 different instruments. Sheila
Mm-hmm.
E., I think her last name was
I think it's Esposito.
yes,
I think it.
right, and she was kind of a San Francisco, I believe, phenom, like
Yep.
coming up. And she said the first time she met Prince, he came backstage where she was playing. She was a percussionist, drums. And to show off in front of her, he kept picking up instruments and playing them, everything in the room. And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, I know who he is. And he says, I've had my eye on you. I really like you. I want you to be part of what I do. And he kind of, got her to be a more national or even international figure. And that was, but she said in a showing off way, he grabbed this, played every instrument within the band that she was with. He picked them up and played them all, everything. And that's all I've ever heard about him is, he was multi-talented. I don't think he had the greatest voice. I don't think he was really a vocal artist in that sense. I mean, some people do like his voice. Look, I think the music side of him was great. I love Prince. You know how much I love him. But go ahead. So talk to me.
So, well, her father was a band leader.
Yeah.
So she came from a musical family. But when it comes to Prince and his vocals, always had this dream duet. I know it's gonna sound really weird. I would have loved to have heard Prince sing with Freddie Mercury. That would have been the most bananas duet of all time.
Yeah,
Because their range.
And I mean, I've certainly recognized the music of Mercury and Queen. I wasn't like a really big fan of the genre, of them, but in the arguments of people who seem to know music and vocals, they think he was pretty good. Like he's one of those names. Yeah, he's one of those names that always comes up as being one of the best ever.
Yep. Yeah. But still, my point is that we tend to think things that were popular during our youth, early 20s, is just better. And I think everybody's that way. It's just something natural because of what you're going through at the time, that things tend to mean a little bit more because you use them as timestamps for your life. And I could say I use music as a timestamp of my life, especially during that time. These sports, yeah, probably same thing. I could say the same thing with TV or movies. It's just a period, I guess from your probably about 13 to about 25, 26, something like that. Everything during that time period you think is the best. You just do. But there's a but here. And that but is the hairband era. I think the hairband era in music was quite possibly the worst period in rock and roll because it became more visual, and thank MTV for that. It became more visual than it did. Um, I should I say? Oh gosh, I'm at a loss for words right now. You paid more attention to how they looked than versus how they sounded, and that really, in my personal opinion, destroyed music at least for a while. And then the next thing you know, you have Kurt Cobain in Nirvana. And I remember watching an interview of Nikki Sixx, and they asked him, "So, how did you feel the first time you heard Nirvana?" He was like, "I need to go find a new job because my era is over with. Is just not going to last." And he was right. It didn't. It didn't. Hair bands didn't last too much longer after that. They were done. But still, it's just a matter of how we feel during that certain time in our lives that we tend to think that things are the best at that time.
Okay, but let me say this as again, I'm not a former professional athlete, but I've worked with a lot that did. Played in the major leagues, and I got some stuff on the wall with that. And I've been an observer of professional football at the NFL level. I mean, I've been at the game since I was 6 years old. I wouldn't say the late 60s players I saw, I didn't think they were better. I thought there was a progression. I'm just saying this from visual observation, but I'm 6, then I'm 16, then I'm 26. In 20 years, I do see it through a different lens. However, when I think of speed, for example, how far do you think 40 yards were? I mean, how far was 40 yards in, say, 1985?
About 40 yards.
About 40 yards, right.
Yeah,
So
yes.
I look at the NFL's fastest man contest, and I think it was 2 years, if not 3, that Darryl Green won it. And Darryl Green, because of
Okay, I
some
remember
timing
that.
issues, never really became an Olympic sprinter, but he ran
Right.
against people. I think he finished second one time, I think to Carl Lewis actually in a race. But anyway,
Yes, I'm crazy.
he
Yeah.
goes out there 1 year on grass. Well, they did the fastest man contest, a 60-yard dash on grass. You can find some of it on YouTube now. 1 year in 3 heats, he had to win a heat to get to the next heat, to get to the finals. He beat Philip Epps, who played in the NFL. He beat Ron Brown, who played in the NFL. And he beat Willie Gault, who played in the NFL. And you know what they all 3 shared in common?
What was that?
They all ran
They're
the
all
Olympics.
Olympic.
They were all Olympians, right? So he
Right.
beat 3 Olympians, and his times in the 60 were 6:11, 6.11, 6.09, and 6.07. And
Wow.
I know from having baseball players in 60s, when you're a major league player or you're a professional prospect and you run under 6.3, you're elite speed, like under 6.3, which I get, but okay. So I'm looking at that time period, and I'm thinking all those guys play. They're all Olympians, and Darryl Green's a step faster. And one of the heats I watched on film once was Darryl Green and Herschel Walker. And Herschel Walker runs a 6.21 or something, and he's 235 pounds or whatever the heck he was.
Yeah,
Right?
big
So you
dude.
watch Herschel Walker, who was a sprinter. In that time, Christian Okoye ran in the
Oh, wow.
4.3, the Nigerian Nightmare.
Right.
So he's 6'3" and 250. So when I talk to young people, I'm just going to make this point. They're kind of like, yes, coach, but they were all 5'6" and 127. I'm like, really? You think? Okay. So, and
No.
I can bring the receipts on this. When I was watching football in the 80s, one of the guys that fascinated me, and he fell out of favor in Washington, and Doug Williams picked the greatest day of his life to have the greatest day of his life. That's always been mine. He has the greatest Super Bowl maybe ever. Then the next year they're 7-9. Schrader's traded. They get Jim Lachey, which nails down the left tackle going forward. They put Jacoby more naturally on the right side, etc. But Schrader's history was he was drafted in Major League Baseball. So you can imagine when the Major League Baseball draft is given or is conducted, then the amateur draft of high school, college players, right? There back then were 62 rounds. Not that that really matters a lot, but there's thousands of guys drafted throughout the country. And take a guess what pick Jay Schroeder was in the draft. 3.
No idea.
3.
Oh, wow.
He was drafted by the Blue Jays, 3rd overall, as a catcher. He's 6'4" tall, and he's committed to UCLA to play quarterback. All right? So he signs as an 18-year-old, goes and plays pro ball his first summer. The NCAA rule is you can play professional sports as long as it's not the same sport. I saw Danny Ainge playing for Syracuse in AAA, and my school teacher said the guy playing third, he might be one of the top college basketball players in the country. That winter or that next spring in March Madness, I see him go coast to coast against Notre Dame playing for BYU and wins this important game, puts BYU in the final. I'm like, that's a guy I saw play third base. So you could play professionally in one sport and keep your college eligibility. So after his first summer of playing rookie ball, basically, he goes to UCLA and gets in like 2 games that fall as a freshman. Then he goes back after the spring courses. He goes back and plays pro baseball. He does it for 3 years. The 3 years he does it, he ends up hitting 234 in A-ball, Carolina League. And he said Dwight Gooden's what put him in the NFL. That was a whole joke. He goes, Dwight Gooden struck me out so many times pitching for Lynchburg, and they played against each other. Mm-hmm. So when Strawberry and all these Mets guys were coming through Lynchburg, which was Carolina League high A classification, Schrader one night is called. They move him to center field because he can run, and he's not hitting well. And they're like, "Hey, you want to give it one more shot? Pitch?" And he's like, "Whatever." So the story is he goes out into the bullpen and he sits like 96, 97. That's his velocity. And he said, I'm afraid I'm going to kill somebody. I've never pitched, whatever, and kind of gives it up. So he calls a guy named Homer Smith, who was his quarterback's coach at UCLA, and it's like, hey, you think you can get me in the NFL? So he goes to his workout. He does a pro workout. The Redskins, then Bobby Beathard's the GM, drafts him in the 3rd round. He hasn't really played much college football, but they draft him in the 3rd round. So I'm out there with the kids the other day, and I'm like, here's something I can't make up. So I talked to my friend Tom House, who works with the Bradys and Breezes and all these NFL quarterbacks. I said, hey, Tom, in baseball, we have the 20 to 80 scale. That's how scouts talk. A 50 tool is an average tool. So when I'm clocking a kid from contact to first base and he runs a 4.3 from the right side, he's a 50 runner. He's an average runner. If he's a 4.1, he becomes a 65 runner. So the way you rank tools is 50 is an average major league tool, 60 is a guy that probably plays every day, a 70 tool is an all-star tool, and an 80 tool is nobody does it better. So like Bonds was an 80 power guy. Average, I guess he was probably 60, 65 on the scale. He wasn't elite like 350 hitter, but he hit for high average. But he was definitely an 80 power guy, right? Because an 82, okay. So I said, hey, Tom, like in baseball, where the 50 tool is the average tool, what's an average NFL distance for the longest toss you have in you? He goes, 58 yards. This is what he tells me, 58 yards. I'm like, okay. He goes, Jack, most quarterbacks in the NFL, if they heave it, get everything behind it, they might throw it 65 yards. Some of them can touch 70. So I'm watching Schroeder one day on an interview, and they asked Schroeder, Jay, just how far can you throw a football? And he goes, well, at practice the other day, I stood on the goal line for kicks, and I hit the 14 on the other end, 86 yards. He used to win beer bets in pro baseball. He would stand on the mound and throw the ball over the center field wall. He could throw it over the center field wall from the mound. So he has that kind of arm strength. So I'm telling these kids, I said, before you think that all these guys are so much better today, I pull up a film of a game, and you can do the math from watching this film. Redskins Cowboys, 1986 in Washington. It's 41-14 game for Washington. And Schroeder drops back, and a defensive end for the Cowboys rushes directly into his face. The guy is crashing down on him. So he is on his back foot, leaning backwards, and he kind of wrist snaps the ball. And Gary Clark catches it 55 yards from where he released it. And you can do the math. He's here, and the ball ends up here, and it's pretty much on a straight line. So I showed it to the kids, and I'm like, he's 3 yards shy of an average throw. And they're like, God, Coach, he was on his back foot. He had a guy in his – and I said, yeah, and you saw him. He wrist flicked 55 yards. There's another game where he finished a half. I have it on film, 1987. It's the end of the half. He throws a Hail Mary from right around his own 40. He throws it out the back of the end zone. So it's 60 yards to the goal line, plus 10 is 70. He throws it in the front row. In a pouring rainstorm, he throws a Hail Mary. He throws it out of the stadium. So I'm looking at that, and I'm like, I don't see those arms today. That's why I'm saying I think the players were better then, because the guy with the combine record was actually Jeff George, 89 yards. He threw a ball at the combine, 89 yards. The record's never been broken. And he came out in the late 80s. So my eyes tell me the guys had some skill. And Schroeder wasn't like, they look at, would you like 5'11", no, he's 6, no, when actually when the guys saw him on the film, like, he's, and I'm like, yeah, he's 6'4", and they listed him 215. I think he was bigger than that. But one thing that guys do bring up, and it's true, they wore much larger shoulder pads in that era. So it made them look more V-shaped, and they definitely had a different look. And people probably that listen to this are sick of me saying this. But, brother, I've never seen Lawrence Taylor since. I haven't. I've never seen Reggie White since. Sean Taylor's the best player I ever saw in person. Sean Taylor. And he was 04 to 07. But he would be 40-plus years old now. But my eyes tell me, based on what I'm looking at, I don't think the players are as good. And last thing I'll say, basketball. Do you think the 92 Dream Team was the best Dream Team ever? Or do you think they were good? They were better 10 years later? They put together a squad 10 years later. I still think 92 is the best ever.
It probably, you're asking the wrong person.
Okay.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong person about that, because I haven't watched a basketball game since 1998.
I got you. Yeah. I used to love basketball, and I totally lost interest years ago.
Yeah. But when it comes to sports, isn't it kind of hard to say that sports is the only thing that's regressing?
No.
Yeah, it has to be progressing. But maybe the difference is fundamentals. Because there's no way you could say that the athletes aren't better, bigger, stronger, faster. But are their fundamentals better? And
Yeah,
I would
I
say
get.
no.
All right, I get what you're saying, but let me ask you this too, because I think I would you not agree? All right, well, I'll put it this way: where do athletes come from in American football, as an example? Where do football players come from?
It's usually the South.
Well, yeah, a lot
And
of them come regionally from the South, but where? Like, I'm not trying to be a trick question, but like, where do they come from?
I really never thought about it,
The
honestly.
colleges. The colleges,
Uh,
right? Pretty much.
Okay,
Most every player's played in college at some level, right? And where do the
right.
colleges recruit? Not just regionally, but where do they recruit from?
Well, high schools.
Right, high schools, exactly. Okay. And more, and I understand why, there are more and more segments of our country that are ending football for fear of head injuries and all the rest, right? I mean, there's
Right.
literally parts of the country, right, that are backing off. And I actually heard Fred Smoot, Mississippi State, played for the Redskins. He said, look, our boys in the South, they're going to continue to play football. It may come
Yeah.
a time when the only guys playing are coming from the deep South. But he goes, the kids down there are going to continue to play. So in more affluent areas, as you move up the northeastern quarter, there may be like, well, I think I'd rather have Timmy play soccer, which also has a high incidence of concussions. But anyway, there
Yep.
may be some reasons why. But our young men in the South are going to continue to play football, most likely, was his argument. But you might have a more shrinking pool. But here's the other thing. I've heard football coaches say this. I was talking to a football coach one time, probably more my age, and he goes, yeah, today I call them air conditioning babies. Air conditioning babies. They sit around the
Hmm.
air conditioner, play video games all day, and then they try to come out to football practice. We didn't have that in the 80s. I can guarantee you most of the guys in the NFL in the 80s did not grow up in an air-conditioned house. They might have had some window fans. I remember the era. I don't remember when we finally had air conditioning, right? So
Okay.
what did you do in the summer?
You went outside and played.
You went outside and did stuff all day until it got dark.
Right.
Everybody did that, right? So I used a Bo Jackson. Where did Bo Jackson grow up?
Was he in
Alabama.
Alabama? Yeah.
Alabama.
Okay.
Is it hot and
Right.
humid in Alabama?
Yes.
And what was he phenomenally good at? Football and baseball.
Right.
Black kids in the South were playing baseball. They were. And he was one of them, right? I mean, he was
Hmm.
one of those guys. Dion grew up playing baseball, right? So, I mean, you got some guys in the South, they're playing baseball then. And they're really, really good baseball players. He was a Hall of Fame type of talent. So now you see the studies that are saying, what? Testosterone's down like 40% in the last 30 years? So what I'm saying is the raw material, if you were going to go in a laboratory and create an athlete, I don't think you're going to get a better set of circumstances than Bo Jackson. Just heat, outside, running around, chasing things, throwing things. He talked about he developed so much arm strength because he stuttered. Kids made fun of him.
Hmm.
And there's these like little berries. I mean, or it's almost like it's a tree that drops these little things that are almost like maybe marble size, little hard things that would drop from
Okay.
these trees in the South. He would throw them at the kids. He threw so well or so hard. There's stories he threw them through screen doors, people's
Hmm.
houses. But if a kid made fun of him, he'd chase them home running, and then he would throw things at them. So if you're throwing lighter objects, it leads to arm speed, leads to arm. He threw out Harold Reynolds famously from the left center field wall. There's this play he made. This is one of the most, and people that know sports will know exactly what I'm talking about. Harold Reynolds could run. Harold Reynolds from MLB Network and ESPN. Harold Reynolds could flat out run. So Harold Reynolds is off with the pitch. The pitch is thrown. He's 3/4 the second when the ball is hit. It's hit off the left center field wall. It is one of those, game over, he's scoring, everybody knows it. Bob Boone, the catcher, who Aaron Boone, his son, is now the manager with the Yankees, kind of starts this kind of stroll like game over. I don't know if it was a decoy. It might have been in baseball. Sometimes you kind of decoy the guy by. So Harold Reynolds has told this story a million times. He knows the ball's off the wall. He's in motion. He's going to score. As he rounds the third base coach, this guy's waving him. Everybody in the ballpark knows if you've almost achieved second, a ball off the wall, you're scoring. And then right as he gets near home plate, Darnell Coles, the on-deck hitter, is like, get down, slide. And he goes, in my mind, I'm like, slide what? What the hell are you talking about? Then Boone does the catch tag and tags him before he scores. He does the slide and he gets tagged out. So the story is he bounces up and he looks at Boone and he goes, who cut that? And he goes, nobody, meaning what cut man just threw me out? Mm-hmm. And he goes, no cut. And Reynolds like, no, I don't know. I'm saying, who threw that? He goes, Jackson. Yeah. And who cut it? He goes, nobody. No, you're not getting it. I'm saying, who cut the throw? And he goes, nobody. And then it dawns on him, Bo Jackson threw it from the wall. Okay. Now, there's kind of a poor man's radar gun. If you can throw a baseball 270 to 300 feet in that range, you can throw 90 miles an hour. It's pretty much, they said, once you, okay? So he just went 340 in the gap and threw it all the way to the plate, and throws him out. So what kind of arm strength did he have? He was insane. He's a kid born in 1962, and he's doing his stuff in the 80s, and he has a hip injury, and we know the rest of the story. I don't see Bo. I don't see Reggie White anymore. I don't see Lawrence Taylor. I don't see the same guys. Now, people can go, well, they were great and all the rest of the talent, and that's what somebody said in the comments the other day. There's just more great players now. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. Because if you're the, super great guy, you look, what is that saying about being a big fish in a small pond? Yeah. What happens if you're around a whole bunch of other big fish? I don't see the athleticism. Don't get me wrong. I see some plays sometimes, but football has turned in at the NFL level. And again, I'm no tough guy, and I'm making an observation on something I didn't do, but it looks like flag football now. And look what's happened even in the Pro Bowl. They don't hit in the Pro Bowl. They're playing flag football, basically. Mm-hmm. They've so legislated out of the league any kind of contact. Like last night, was it last night? Or was it Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. What's today? Is today Monday? Yeah. Yes. I'm watching a hit on Mahomes against the Eagles. So it's a Super Bowl matchup. And the contact with head that draws a flag, it's like third and whatever. And if the Chiefs don't get a first down, it's kind of like they lose anyway. Philadelphia wins the game. But it's this kind of moment like where I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City doesn't come back. And there's a lot of people that think the game is kind of rigged or fixed towards certain stars. And a guy coming up with arms up to try to deflect pass makes a grazing contact with his helmet. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's egregious. I can tell you what, in 1987, it ain't nothing. It's what was that? And he gets 15 yards, unnecessary roughness, roughing the quarterback. And I'm like, that wasn't roughing the passer. I'm like, that wasn't anything egregious. But that's the way the game is now. So guys who used to take out the quarterback with 3 extra steps and put that kind of injury potential on the guy. And, hey, I'm close by. Every time you drop back, no, I'm coming. These guys are having to pull off. They're having to pull up. Go ahead. Well, think of it this way, man. There's a lot more money at stake, and is it worth the risk? Well, so people would tend to hold back, and they may even be encouraged to hold back from the front office, because the last thing they want is for their starting quarterback to get hurt because of something. So is it that the athletes are better or worse, or is it that these guys are not going 100% any longer because it's too much of a risk? All right. Okay. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. However, I don't know. And we were in the bullpen the other day talking, and one of the guys brought up fill in the blank. Somebody, I said, they weren't better than Randy Moss. And the guy goes, oh, coach. I said, Randy Moss was 6'4", or is 6'4", and he ran a 4.3. Look at the film. Jerry Rice is the most productive player in NFL history. He's generally ranked number 1. Now some people say Brady for sure. I get it. They're goats. I get it. But I never saw anything like Randy Moss. I did not see anything else look like Randy Moss when it came to that kind of speed, that kind of length. I don't know. I'm sorry. Again, he's not 5'11", and he's playing in 1937 in inferior shoes. The guy was Randy Moss. Look at the film. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Have you ever actually looked at Usain Bolt run?
Yes.
Okay. He looks like he's tiptoeing, like he's just grazing down. Yeah. So the thing is, but he's running faster than everybody else is. And I have to go back to, is it worth you going 100%? You have $100 million contract, man. Would you risk sparing somebody? No, I wouldn't.
I have a buddy of mine I used to play summer ball with, and you grew up with a major leaguer that played like 16 years. And this was in the 80s, into the 90s. The guy played in the major leagues. He's a household name. I could say the name. I'm not going to, but my buddy grew up with him. So they played together in high school. My buddy got a little bit of time in the college. We used to play summer ball together, and he knew this major leaguer. So he goes to a city close by to see his buddy. And he says everything he does on the field looks like a half-ass effort. He says that. Guy comes back, and he goes, it's kind of disappointed with my friend. And I said, friend, man, you're not the guy you used to be. You don't go hard for that ball anymore. You don't. He goes, hey, I got one more contract. I'm 33 years old or whatever he was at the time. I've gotten to this point. I'm making this kind of money. If I stay healthy and get one more 4-year contract to carry me to 37, whatever, I'm more set for life. I'm going to have generational money. I'm not about to get hurt. That's what he told him.
Yeah.
And I got it then. He goes, I'm looking at my friend and I'm thinking, he's not playing the game the way he used to. He used to be balls to the wall, hair on fire. Man, I'm up there and he's going through the motions. And he told me, we go out and get a beer after the game. I get a chance to catch up with my friend who's in the big leagues. And he goes, nah, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not about to risk this next big contract. And I got it. But the money gets bigger and bigger and the efforts get more and more reined in at some level.
Yes, of course. It has to. If I had a 1964 Ferrari GTO 250, I'm not driving it to work every day. Car's worth $40 million. I'm not driving it to work every day. Why would I take that risk? It doesn't make any sense. So if athletes were getting worse, if athletes weren't getting better, I say that. If that were the case, then other sports would have been, we would be seeing the same lag, if you want to call it, but we're not. They're getting better.
Major League Baseball's way down.
No, I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about other sports like track and field. They're breaking records all the time because the athletes are getting better and better and better. But you're talking about organized sports.
This is the one I got to get to. Explain my boy on the wall then.
The Secretariat?
Yeah.
Well, that's an animal.
Seriously.
Dude, it's an animal. I mean, it's not a human.
I understand, but I mean, it kind of goes to, it's just because he was born in Virginia near where I grew up. But it is an interesting thing. It is an interesting thing that he set in the Triple Crown, but he set the 3 records. Yeah. That he's the first horse to run a sub-2 in the Kentucky Derby. You know who the second horse was to do it?
No.
Sham, in the same race, right behind him. Sham set the track record, minus Secretariat being in front of him. And there has been a horse that's broken 2 minutes since, but not Secretariat's record. And it is interesting that he ran the Triple Crown in 1973, and that no horse has come close to breaking his records. Well, I say that one horse did kind of come close by breaking 2 minutes. The other thing that's interesting is, and I think it was a Kentucky Derby. It was one of the 3 races. I don't know. I'm listening to race people on one of these documentaries about Secretariat. I just find it fascinating. They said he's the only horse in recorded history that they've ever seen that ran 5/4 of a mile. In each quarter, he ran faster than the quarter before. They'd never seen that. He's a weirdo. He was a weirdo, and he seemed to be a competitive weirdo because, I know, we can try to project these human things on a horse, but, Ron Turcotte, who just passed away at 83, who was his jockey, said he kind of did whatever the hell he wanted to. And if you ever watch that Kentucky Derby, this is what I always find most fascinating about that race. And I did a show with the guy about this. What I always find most fascinating is I think the opening field of the first race, Kentucky Derby, was like 20, and then the Preakness was like 11. And by the time they get to the Belmont, it's like 6. It breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the horses don't enter. But when he comes out, and it was a thing, they said the first race he ever ran, he got, as they called it, mugged. He got run over by another horse coming out of the gate. And for whatever reason, psychologically, as a horse, he got very skittish about coming out of the blocks, coming out of the gate. He kind of looked around like, is anything going to cut me off? And so therefore, he would always get behind all the horses. So if you look at him on that film, he literally comes out like 18th. He comes out. Now look, he's going to set a track record and break 2 minutes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out 18. And then there's 17 horses out there running. He goes out away from the rail. And if you watch the film, it's amazing. He overtakes and overtakes out 8 horses' asses wide, across, and he's
Mm-hmm.
running out all this extra distance. And then when he gets into around third on the back stretch, he just overtakes everybody and blows everybody away, except for Sham. Sham was like right with him. But I would love to do the math to find out how much extra did he run to run around all these horses and still set the track record. That's crazy that
That's
he
a
had
lot.
to do all that extra running. But they say psychologically, according to Turcotte, he liked to get behind the horses and run around them. Like he literally seemed to do that. Now in the Belmont, when he sets the track record and wins by 31 lengths and famously wins by 100 yards in that last race, he came out hot. And if you watch the movie, this was discussed. Everybody's screaming in the stands, he's going too fast. He's going to blow up. No horse can sustain this. And Turcotte was like, he came out hot. And I'm like, screw it. Let's see what he's going to do. And he kept going and going and going. And he ran that hard the whole race. And he had never seen him do that before. Don't know what. Don't know what he was thinking. But he came out hard. Sham tried to keep up with him. Sham never ran again and broke his leg. He had a hairline fracture. And they think it was the stress of trying to keep up with Secretariat. And that's why he falls behind in the back and ends up 31 lengths behind, because he broke down. He didn't break down, but he had a hairline fracture and he never ran again. So Sham, running in any other year, is horse of the year.
Okay.
Sham was this big, beautiful black horse that could run, incredibly, talented, but he ran into Secretariat. Wrong year. Just he had the wrong horse to run against. But stuff like that about even animals fascinates me, that this big, badass red horse decides to set records and do whatever he did. And with all this, well, the nutrition's better, the training's better, the tracks are clearly better. Why doesn't anybody outrun him? Is he that much better? I think he was. I think it'd be crazy to say that horse racing, in that sense, and I'm no racehorse expert. I just love Secretariat because he's from my hometown. But I'd have to say he might have been the pinnacle. He might have been it. Yeah. He might have been what we might not ever see again.
Yeah,
and that's
I agree.
possible.
Yes,
and
I
maybe
agree.
Willie Mays was. Maybe Mickey Mantle was. Maybe Hank Aaron was. Maybe all those guys were.
It
Ted
is,
Williams.
but you have to separate individual sports from team sports when it comes to records. Just my
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. But you do look at like tennis, the guys that were playing in the 50s with the inferior rackets and courts and tennis shoes and all the rest. Sure, the players are great today, but you do wonder sometimes that kind of probably even the extra skill set some of them had to do to compete at high levels with inferior equipment and everything else. I mean, they were probably pretty good because of it.
No, I agree with you. You have to make up for what you're lacking in equipment. Yeah, I get it.
But you don't know any different. Yeah, but you don't know any different.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things that you can't pull one person out of a time period and fast forward them 50 years into a different time period and have it play against each other. That's what you sit and argue all day about, But there's a lot of records, specifically in track and field, that are finally being broken, that were made. Well, not exactly considered untouchable. They were made in the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, and the vast majority of these records came from Eastern Europe. Mm-hmm. I wonder why. Like FloJo's record just got broken. I think it was this year. Um, yeah, her record, a bunch of track and field records were broken recently, or in the past
Right.
several years, because the conditioning and training and so on and so forth finally caught up to steroids. That's why
Yeah.
there were so many of those records coming out of Eastern Europe. They weren't
Yeah.
testing, and some of those women, some of those East German women and Czechoslovakians, you look at them running, you're like, hey, there's something going on there. There's really something going on there. But yeah,
No,
things are catching up.
to your point, though, earlier, I do think there's a lot of truth to this. I do think this is true. And this would be the example. I saw a guy on an interview. He's a math guy and a huge baseball fan. And what someone put to him was he's a baseball historian and a PhD in math. Like he totally gets the whole math picture. And the guy said to him the age-old question, could Babe Ruth play today? Could Ty Cobb play today? And all that. And he goes, yeah, all those guys could play today. But here's what you have to understand. In whatever sport you're talking about, there is a bell curve of distribution that gets pulled out to extremes with lesser talent.
Right.
So the more you bring great talent together, so he asked the question, and I'll ask you. Pretty much the game of baseball at the professional level, and believe me, there is a little bit of variation from this, but where has the game historically just about fallen when it comes to batting average? As an average of all players thrown together, what has baseball generally been played around?
Well, I don't
What
understand the question.
Guys hit 300, guys hit 200, whatever. I'm saying if you
Okay.
threw everybody that's ever played, every at bat thrown together, what is
hmm
the game of baseball generally batting average for everybody thrown
Oh,
together?
I'm going to say 290.
250.
Oh, wow.
Historically,
Okay.
there have been times like in 1968 when they lowered the mound the next year. Bob Gibson had a 112 ERA and was 21-9.
hmm
He had a 112 ERA and he was 21-9. Cardinals couldn't score. No one could score. It's the year Denny McClain won 31 games. 1968, 15-inch mound, baseball pitching became so dominant they lowered the mound to 10 inches the next year. Carl Yastrzemski won the batting title that year in the American League. What do you think was his average?
No idea.
301. 301.
Oh,
He's the only guy in the American League to hit over 300.
oh, wow.
So they said it's reached a point, pitching's too dominant, lower the mound, whatever. Okay. So I say that to say, the guy said, though, if you take the 40s and 50s, go back to the turn of the 20th century, whatever time you go back to, he made this point. When Ty Cobb was hitting 420, Rogers Hornsby, Shoeless Joe Jackson, whatever these guys were, they hit over 400. What else was somebody hitting? 160.
250. Oh, right, right, right.
160. Yeah.
hmm
Okay. So he made the point, and this is a better way of putting it. I put my hands where everybody can see it. If you could have a high school team, what's the best player? That's probably the best example. Jimmy going to go to college or maybe get drafted, high-end kid. He's a kid among boys. Everybody else can't be anywhere in his neighborhood talent-wise. What's he hit during the high school season? He hits
400.
550.
Oh,
550. Yeah, guys that are drafted high hit well over 500
oh, damn.
often.
Okay.
Okay. But Timmy's second baseman, who's going to go and do some kind of studies in college and has to play because they got to put 9 guys on the field. He might hit 160 and have to play every day. So his point is you get this pulled out bell curve. 250 is still the average of all at bats, but some guy's going to hit close to 600 and some kid's going to hit close to 150 and still play.
hmm
So what happens when if you took all the greatest players of all time and threw them together, ERAs would go up, batting averages would go down. If you had to face the greatest pitchers of all time every day, then Ted Williams wouldn't hit his 344 lifetime. He'd hit something other if he had to face the best pitchers every day. He's
Right.
going to get a percentage of his hits off of inferior pitchers. So the guy's point was, when he's asked, could Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth, and he goes, yeah, those guys could play, but as the talent has increased, the guy that clips off the bottom margin of who gets to play, 230 guys are struggling to stay in the league now, where at one time a guy might hit somewhere around 200 and maybe keep a job. Who else you going to? So the more talented any league becomes, that sort of mean it remains the same, but the edges get pushed to the middle. Now you got a guy hitting 330. Okay, that's the point.
I get it.
So that kind of goes back to, I met Jim Brown. God rest his soul. It was a huge thing for me. I'm a sports fan. He was very nice to me. I'm there to get Sonny Jurgensen autographs that I have on the wall. I don't have any more money and I just see him. 2007, he passed away at the age of 87. And I will tell you this. I'm in the presence of Jim Brown, Cleveland Browns, Syracuse University, the whole 9 yards. Greatest lacrosse player of all time. Greatest lacrosse player. Everybody knows that he was the greatest lacrosse player of all time. So I'm right there. Right. I said, Mr. Brown, can I get a picture? And he goes, yeah, son, come on in. And I sit there beside Jim Brown. Brother, he was huge. He's a 70-some-year-old man. He gets up with a cane to stand up to leave. He was huge. His hands were huge. Now, he played at 6'2", 230. And people bounced off of him. So I've heard people make the point. The reason he had 12,000-plus yards rushing and over a 5 average, which historically no one's carried for an entire career, is because he was playing against inferior people. That if you fast forward him in time to playing 20 years later, he probably doesn't have the same level of success. And I'm like, right. I get it.
Yeah.
But you know who that guy was 20 years later? It was O.J. Simpson. Go back and watch the film on Simpson. Simpson he wasn't quite Jim. Well, I mean, they were both tall. And I mean, man, you go back and look at O.J., minus what happened and how he's perceived in the public, man, that's one of the most talented football players ever. But then, you have your Earl Campbells, you have your Barry Sanders, you have these guys throughout history that, Emmitt Smith, a lot of people say, Walter Payton, a lot of people will say. Some of it's circumstances, the team they play on, whether they have a better offensive line, whether they're more run-oriented, all those things come into play. But I will say this. Did you ever see the movie Any Given Sunday?
Yes.
I watched it again recently. Oliver Stone, right?
Yes.
2013 NFL Network ranked the top 100 players of all time. 1 was Jerry Rice. Who do you think was 2?
Lawrence Taylor.
Jim Brown. Who was 3? Lawrence Taylor. Who was 6? Johnny Unitas. All 3 of them were in the movie.
That's true.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yep. And there's scenes where Jim Brown's trying to get Lawrence Taylor fired up, punching him around all. Jim Brown was born in 36. Was it 1936? So you figure he's 60 plus years old in that film. Remember what he looked like?
Yeah.
Jim Brown was still put together.
I know, right? Yeah.
And he's playing the scene. And remember LT. LT's born in 59. So he's 40 when that movie's made. And remember some of the scenes with him without a shirt. I mean, you're looking at him, you're like, that's LT 40 and 7 years or 6 years post playing. You're looking at him going, that's still Lawrence Taylor, right? So you look at those two guys, two of the greatest, and then Johnny Unitas plays the coach for one of the teams. And he's the 6th ranked guy of all. So I mean, Oliver Stone's throwing some Hall of Fame superstar guys in the movies. But when you see Jim Brown well up in age, and you see Lawrence Taylor 6 years after he played, and he's playing the role of a 13-year veteran, 14-year veteran linebacker, you don't look at that and go, that looks out of place. No, you're like, damn, I think that guy could probably still play.
Right.
So, I mean, you watch him in that movie, and you're kind of like, yeah, I kind of get it. Now that I see him in that environment. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing about Any Given Sunday that when you watch the movie, well, if you had watched the movie when it first had come out, the uniforms. And you looked at the uniforms, you're like, man, those things look terrible or whatever. And now everybody's wearing them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were definitely ahead of time.
I always thought one of the most interesting things was Dennis Quaid.
Okay.
Right? played
Yes.
the quarterback.
He played the quarterback.
I get my Quaid, and it's Randy Quaid was the other. Randy Quaid, different actor, but yeah, it's Dennis
Yes.
Quaid, right? Okay. Remember the scene where he's the star quarterback? You just always wondered, does this ever really happen? Remember, there's a scene where he's been injured and he's kind of on the mend. He's trying to come back, and he tells the wife, because I've been thinking about it. I got some other options of what to do.
All right.
Remember the scene, and she slaps him.
Yeah.
You are the quarterback. This is all you're good for. And I'm like, has there ever been a wife that had a husband saying, I just don't know if I can do this anymore? And
I mean, who knows? Who knows what goes on behind the scenes? Because that's probably her. That's her status symbol.
It's her meal ticket. It's her meal ticket.
Well, that too. Well, I'm not. The guy probably had plenty of money, but more so, I'm married to the quarterback kind of mentality. Right. And if he doesn't play anymore, yeah, who am I married to? I'm just married to some dude who used to play. You know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we should do some more. We should do some more breakdown of movies. All right, this has been. Give me your closing thoughts, arguments about the '80s and why it's better, or whatever you want to say.
There's a little bias when it comes to us, but at least we have a lot of evidence to prove our point. We have a lot of evidence, and I would be happy to argue with anybody to say that.
One other thing I will say on music, our mutual friend that did radio was a musician. He played in bands. And I remember him saying an interesting thing one time. He said, when you're a fan, you know what you like.
Yep.
When you're in music or some profession, you know when someone's good. And I will say the 2004, which I've mentioned many times, the 2004 American Music Awards, when Prince does the guitar solo, I watched a guy on YouTube break down exactly what he was doing. And he said, This is not human. This guy is literally breathing. Like, people can't do what he's doing. I don't know. I just know it's like really badass. Like I'm watching it, like Prince is really good, but the guy is saying he's a professional guitarist, been in bands the whole nine. He goes, I'm telling you, someone that teaches the art, that guy is better than anyone. That's kind of what he said. Okay. Yeah. Love you, brother. We're going to do another one here real quick. Take care, man. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, subscribe and hit your notification button to get an update when we post another episode. See you soon.